Hey everybody, and welcome to Elden Dogs, your favorite podcast about Elden Ring and Eternal Cities, and I'm still kind of confused about it. My name is Loaf of White Brad, and today I'm known as Sir Gideon Offnear because I let smarter people do research, and then I go to Reddit in my library and say, I think Farts McGee was right on this one.
I am Alexander Ironfist, and I'm confused why there's stars in the sky if I'm underground. Also, you can't eat these claymen. They don't taste very good. So it's kind of a bummer for me.
Yeah. And I'm Horaloo.
Horaloo.
I'm going to bench press this podcast. Look out. I'll break it over my knee like a glow stick.
I'm ripping this lion right off of me.
I'm so mad. I'm a big angry wrestle man.
If you told me
Zangief
Zangief was going to be in this game, I would have doubted you for sure.
Yeah, he at some point he does bust out the 360 pile driver. He wrestled Bear. And at the end, he does the that traditional Russian dance with Yeltsin.
Yeah, he does the Cossack dance.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising, actually.
Yeah, I actually revisited your Street Fighter episode recently from back in the day, and yeah, the lore makes me upset the more I learn.
It's it was a different time. Back in the 90s, back when you would just dance with presidents. Like, I think now we think presidents are kind of scary, but they were appearing, political figures were appearing in fighting games a lot more. Do you see, speaking of Eternal Cities, have you ever seen Eternal Champions?
No.
Video game where
Nope.
It's a Sega Genesis and Sega CD game, and the Sega CD version, there's a character who's a senator who has the power to veto other characters' moves. Like, no joke. It's pretty great.
Just stamp them on the forehead. Like, no, you can't do that.
He does. He pulls out a piece of paper and puts it on them. They can't do super moves for a while.
And back in the glory days, we'd have presidents playing basketball on NBA Jam. Things have just gone downhill since then.
We decided we don't like them. We woke up from a 200-year dream of imagining that they were cool pop culture Avengers instead of a lot of war criminals a lot of the time.
We are part of the Tokyo Beat Podcast Network. Make sure to check out all those other amazing shows. And yes, our good friend Gary is joining us today. Gary, where might some of our listeners know you from?
I am roughly one half of the duckfeed.tv podcast network, which does Watch Out for Fireballs and Abject Suffering and Best Quality Vacuum and stuff. A bunch of different shows about games and TV and movies and stuff. But primarily, listeners of this podcast might know me from Bonfireside Chat, which is, as far as I know, making no claims to the best, but I think the longest running Soulsborne podcast.
Yeah. What episode are you guys on now?
The episode numbering got a little confusing because we took a break.
Yeah.
But we started, quite a while ago. It was like 9 years ago or something like that, like 8 or 9 years ago. So quite a while with that hiatus in the middle, to be fair.
Yeah. I was very happy when I finally did get into the Soulsborne games because I was outside of it for a long time. And I remember finally beating Bloodborne. I unlocked some more wonderful content from you and Cole and listened to you guys for a long time. So super happy to have you join us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for being on our show as well. People who listen to the show might want to check out Brad on a more recent episode of Bonfireside Chat.
We discussed Taco Bell dragons.
We did.
Scariest ones.
The scariest ones.
Scariest ones.
Give me a Glintstone dragon any day.
Yeah. The dragon that's behind the Taco Bell that just eats a lot of Taco Bell and it starts corrupting them. That's a bad dragon.
The Baja Blast.
No Kiro dragon. Yeah, I don't. No, thank you.
Yeah, well, today we're going back. We've kind of jumped around on Elden Dogs a little bit all over the place, but we kind of decided to save a lot of the underground stuff until we got near the end. And so we're going back underground. We're going to go check out the Eternal Cities today. And before we get in there, we kind of have to talk about Radon a little bit more. Radon, gosh, I'm already getting a little upset with the lore just thinking about this because I haven't done so much research on, I think, an episode and gotten further away from my goal ever. The Eternal Cities It's so ambiguous.
Yeah. They connect to everything. They're a lot. It's very confusing. I think this is one of the more confusing kind of zones in the game. There are a lot of something that we talk about a lot on Bonfireside Chat is how much work the phrase associated does.
Yep.
In Elden Ring lore, where something will just have the relationship need not be specified, but we know these things are associated. And the hidden cities, the underground cities, are associated with a lot of stuff, a lot of threads.
And they're very open. Now, the reason we need to start with Radahn is because our access to at least Nokron is blocked by Radahn, the Star Scourge, who has become a feral, rabid, screaming cannibal and beloved by everybody. As I hope if I ever lose my mind, everyone's like, well, that's just Brad. We still love him.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Radahn.
Yeah, so Radahn is a part of the Carian royal family, and the Carians are associated with the Eternal Cities for a number of reasons. It seems like they've opened up some trade between them, but Radahn learned from an alabaster lord gravity magic, and he is keeping the stars at bay. I'm not sure if it's because Radahn is anti-alien or what he's been up to, but yeah, our access is kind of blocked to get to where we want to go down there.
It's really interesting to think about that specific issue because Radahn, it would make a lot of sense for him to be holding the stars in place as this metaphorical and literal way of stopping Ranni as a thing. But by the time we meet Radahn, he doesn't feel conscious of anything.
Yeah.
He's a mindless cannibal, like roaming the desert, eating his former soldiers. So it's tricky to ascribe the motivation. It's either, some part of him is holding on, if it's intentional, if he's holding the stars back specifically, despite Ranni, which I think there's a good read for. If that is, since they were enemies in the Shattering and such, if that's the idea, I wonder if it is a thing where he either kind of turned it on, and then he lost his mind and the wheels are already in motion to stop the wheels, to stop the stars, or if there's some part of him that still is like hanging on, like it almost feels like the last remnant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always felt like he had a task or a quest, so he had his motivations, and I do think it was stopping Ranni, but holding the stars at bay and being out in Caelid for that long just drove him mad, and I think he might not even know why he's doing it anymore. It's just what he does at this point. I always kind of got that vibe from him.
Yeah, I'm always reticent to start discussing cut content, but originally, they were envisioning the end of Radahn's boss fight to have a giant Estelle crash into the battlefield there, and you would actually fight one of the big star monsters. And I think they cut it because they wanted Radahn to have his own moment of glory. But regardless, we put a pillow over Radahn's head, and a meteor crashes into Liurnia, into the forest there. Not Liurnia, in Limgrave. And so now we have gained access, and you can see it from a ways away. There's all like the floating rocks still suspended in gravity. I imagine it's just from the monster that just like has its own like gravity magic, gravitational pull that's kind of levitating stuff there. But it's a pretty big landmark. It's hard to miss.
They put it on your map now too. That got patched in.
They did?
Right. Yeah, there's it even says after you beat Radahn now, it says a new icon has appeared on the map. You get one of those big clumsy tutorial messages there. So apparently a lot of people were missing that.
It took me a bit to find it, but I got as far as I could in Ronnie's quest line before all of a sudden I felt like I hit a wall and was like, where do I go? What do I do? And then after beating Radahn, I was looking for Blythe.
Yep.
And that's how I ended up finding it. Plus, I went back to Limgrave all the time because the game kicked my ass and I needed to go fight some easier enemies to get my self-esteem back up at a certain point.
And EG basically tells you, that this will connect the way. that it'll break open to maybe Nokron. You should check and see where it went. So at the very least, gives you the heads up directly to look for where the meteor hit. You can kind of figure it out based on the geography of the boss fight with Radon a little bit.
And EG, he also mentions like he's super bummed. He's like, I did a bad thing, and I locked Blythe up and I kenneled him. I put him away. Put him away.
He needed a timeout.
Problem dog.
Yeah. He was going to go bad eventually. So he's locked in the Forlorn Hound Ever jail, and he's confused. He's got mixed programming going on. But we're finally, we go down these little like jumping stones to get to these Eternal Cities. And this was, one of those moments in the game where you've been looking up there, because you get down to the Ainsel River and the Schiefer River probably before you get here. And I wasn't sure if we would ever get up to this area. You go down those elevators and you're able to like get glimpses of this like fallen hawk dude flicking you off, and I'm like, what's he doing up there?
They do a real good job of being canny when they show you items in places that look unreachable, and when they don't.
Yeah.
It's like from software, everyone's like they're very intentional, I think, about saying like, hey player, you're going to come here later. And you know that because there's a corpse dangling off a ledge that has a little glowy spot. And being like, no, there's nothing up here. This is just background shit. This is, the distant cities of Anor Londo, like the parts of Anor Londo you can't reach. They kind of do both with this area. There are places where you can see something interesting, that you can explore, and other times where it looks like it may as well be just background.
Yeah.
Low poly stuff.
I'm always worried I'm missing something too, because when you're down there in the river, you can find a portal to get up to at least where the dragonkin is. And so I wasn't sure. And like you were mentioning, you can also see that Crucible Knight just standing off in the distance, very much trapped. And he looks pretty bored over there.
I'm just.
It's a bad outpost. Yeah, it's Siberia basically for him. Just like stand here, and all you have to hang out with is headless ghosts.
They said enlist in the army; it'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah.
You go a little too wild on R&R one weekend, and they station you out here.
Yeah. It just takes one eternity a month.
So the lore of the Eternal Cities, they are created by these citizens known as the Nox. And as all great lore discussions begin with Latin, Nox is Latin for night, if you didn't know. Mm-hmm. And these folks are a great other faction in Below the Lands Between. They are a powerhouse civilization, which is not operating inside the Golden Order. And a lot of it is wrapped in mystery. They worship the stars. They worship the moon. They did something to piss off the Greater Will pretty bad at one point. And it's open to speculation. Some of it is, anyways, because the timelines for these things are like shaky at best. And so trying to wrap my mind around everything that's happening here, there is at least 3 Eternal Cities in the game, and the Nox were banished underground. Tyler, do you know why they were banished underground?
Because if I recall correctly, which my lore is terrible despite doing so many episodes of this, they tried to harm the Greater Will with a dagger-looking blade thing that it looks like it's made from a human. I'm thinking, I can't remember where I found it.
The Finger Slayer blade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. Like they I don't know if they had used it or intended to use it or just built it. Like the timeline's tricky.
Yeah, and it's building it could have just been treason or actually trying to use it. But the people, what are they called? The one that Ronnie, I can never remember the names.
The Carians?
No, the Black Knights.
Black Knife Assassins.
Yeah.
The Newman.
Aren't they?
Well, so the Newman are associated. The Newman are
the dreaded associated.
Yes.
associated. Newman also come from outside the land between. America's Newman. Newman are a lot of things as well, but they're also they happen to be Newman. It's squares and rectangles. They're Black Knife Assassins and are strongly associated with the Newman. We're strongly associated with America.
I thought they were part of the same family tree.
Well, and
I think
it's
they
potential
are, but
if you go back far enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the timeline is what makes it confusing. You know.
Yeah. So if you have assassins in your family and you make an assassin's blade that could harm the greater will, like you're gonna get in some trouble.
They have other artifacts as well. They have the mirrored helm, which is one of my favorite items in the game because it's a tinfoil hat.
Oh, me too, man. Those signals are not getting to my brain.
It's very funny. They built that as well, and that's to stop the outside forces from looking at you. So that could be the blasphemy.
Yeah, and if it wasn't confusing enough, there's also the Night Folk, which is one of your character classes, and they seem to be kind of associated with both the Newman and the Nox. And in the Karian Royal Manor, you can find the Arumi, which is like a sword whip, and that's made out of the liquid metal. And it said it was wielded by Night Folk warriors. So there's another end name to just put in that big pile of. They all hang out at the same house. We don't know if they're family though.
It's an interesting part about Elden Ring, and it makes like talking about it unique, I think, among the FromSoft games, is that there's way more kind of overlap, and the word that immediately comes to mind, and this has connotations, so insert a gentler word, but like not slop, but like lack of focus, mess. You know, there's a lot of overlapping bits, things that fulfill the same purposes, things that connect to many things that web out, and it's over such a long period of history that the connections get really fuzzy.
Yeah,
it ends up making, for me, like Elden Ring, one of the reasons why it's my favorite of these is that it's really interesting to drill down and start trying to think absolute nitty gritty, factually, this is the order of events, what happened, and to kind of unfocus your eyes and be like, this is over such a long time. What kind of themes do I need to soak in? Like, what is this about? In term, you know, why, you know, what is this trying to express? That's like a human truth, you know, so there's a deciphering the plot and there's a deciphering the kind of emotional text, and you can do both because of that.
I'm always curious as to how much George R.R. Martin had to do with the lore of the game and the backstory like this, because I see certain parallels between like his writing and I'm not super well versed in other From Software games. But when you start reading Game of Thrones or watching it, you get thrown a lot of information, and a lot of it is clouded by history and biased storytelling. So it's like, who's telling the truth? And you kind of got to put it together yourself. And then you combine that with this world in Elden Ring, and it just kind of muddies the waters even further.
I'm a big George R. R. Martin fan, and one of my favorite things that those books do is hint at a larger world and hint at this these other civilizations. They just mention whole continents for like there were big gorillas and wyverns.
They're the coolest continents too. They're poison butterflies that like kill everybody. Like all of that stuff that's in Essos.
There's a
so cool
Butterfree in the Game of Thrones universe. How did I miss
many
that?
Butterfrees.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, well, it's the missing no of the books. You had to glitch the books. So
you hold it upside down in every other letter, and then it could destroy your bookmark and not be able to.
Yeah, it crashes the book.
Yeah, but like George R. R. Martin's so good at that where he can just in an afternoon be like, there was a continent called Sithorios, people landed there, disease was intense, and it just there's such a bigger story there that you have to imagine. And I think if we were to find a book that says the Nox are these people, they did this and this and this, while initially it might feel nice to have a bow on your present, I much prefer to interpretation. You kind of bring your own thoughts and feelings to the story, which I love. I love having the mystery more than the answers for a lot of it.
Especially in a video game where it's a lot easier to put yourself in the point of view of, you know, your protagonist, the person you're playing as, because you're experiencing the game through their eyes. It feels a lot more, you know, it makes a lot more sense for you to have to infer these things rather than to have somebody just spill some exposition at you at a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had mentioned the Nox mirror helm, and one thing that I find always interesting is when there's any remnants of the Nox above ground, and there's not a lot in the Church of Absolution where you can go ask for forgiveness. That's a Night Maiden statue there, and in Celia, I think that's the only time you run into two members of the Nox. Yeah, and they're just
and some of the sorceries come from there as well. They talk about how Nokron and Noxella get mixed up with as to which one is has what item. But one of the items that you can get down there talks about that it being above there and that teaching one of the night sorceries.
I wish that the cities had more identity, like their own sports teams or something.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started. That'd be dope.
The Noxtella blobs, just versus the Nokron blobs with spears versus the electric blobs.
Yeah, I'd be Team Sphere for sure on that one.
One of them's got to be the ants.
Oh, sure.
The nameless ants.
Yeah, they could do like that one sports team and then ride the ant onto the field before the game. I think they do that at Arrowhead Stadium still. That dude rides out on the horse.
Yeah.
Give me a version, I said this before, but of Mega Man Soccer, but for Elden Ring.
Man, sign me up. I know someone's probably going to do something like that. They've been working on PS1 Bloodborne for a while.
A Bloodborne cart as well.
Oh, Bloodborne cart. Yeah, that looks pretty wild.
Yeah, that looks sick.
And so, yeah, I was doing my research and getting promptly frustrated because the more I read, the less I know. But I was also, people were speculating that maybe Radon came to Caelid to not only look over Celia, but to kind of guard one of the entrances to down below, because the Carians are definitely trading stuff up and down with the Nox. The silver tier, the mimicry magic, the Carians use to create the Albinaurics, and the Celestial do. A lot of the items that Ronaldo winds up using is coming up from them, and they're sending, Starlight Shards down. So I have a feeling that's probably something that was kept secret from the Golden Order for a while as well. It's
the biggest connection is the looking for the Age of Stars. Right. Mm-hmm. One of the, the textual stuff we have about the Nox is that they were in eternal anticipation of their Lord of Night and the Age of Stars, which is the name of the thing you do with Ronnie. Mm-hmm. So that is a very direct connection between the two.
Yeah. One of my favorite YouTube videos that I watched in regards to this was a Tarnished Archaeologist, which if there's somebody that is above my pay grade, it's probably him. He could just talk about architecture for a good hour, and I'll sit there with my eyes glassed over, happily nodding along. Yes, he's right. But he was the first person that I heard speculate that the Nameless Eternal City used to be part of Leyndell, and it collapsed below. It was possibly retribution for some of their blasphemy. And it is cool that the way the overground map is directly above the Nameless Eternal City, and that is a theory I like to I ascribe to it, but also it could be way off, and I could be wrong. What do you think of that theory, Gary?
I haven't seen that video. That name pops up. A lot of our fans have mentioned the Tarnished Archaeologist, so I have to check. Obviously, I have to check them out. I just have not, and I feel like you're the fifth person who has told it to me. I just keep forgetting. I think that's really interesting. I would have to watch the video. My gut resists it only because Leyndell looks like a poorly formed city, and this is real silly, but aesthetically, right? It's got a complete set of walls. There's part of it that's collapsed from the dragon attack.
Yeah,
there, and there's the lake to the side, but there's not a huge sinkhole in it where there would have been this thing. Again, you can get around that with time stuff, and there may be something I'm missing. I'm not familiar with the video. But it feels like Leyndell feels like just even in an aesthetic sense, like a designed city to me that is not missing a portion via sinkhole.
I did some wandering around today, and it's very hard to get a look at what is beyond those walls, because they do have very defined walls. It's like when you cross over I-41 in Milwaukee and you're in a different neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so
I suppose it could be like San Francisco and then Oakland fell into, became this underground city.
Yeah, so it was tough.
There was a suburb.
It was tough to find a good look, but it does look like there's just some sort of strange sinkhole there. Regardless, though, I like to imagine that there was kind of just more one city at one point, because there's a number of items that just say the Eternal City.
Is it possible that at any point they built the city over it?
Above where
Yeah.
it was? Possibly. Let's do a theory on that one.
Well, again, timeline stuff, right? It's really hard to know because we have all of Lindell's history as well to account for. So it would, from a storytelling perspective, it always feels a little weird if like we were having the War of the Dragons at the same time the Greater Will was striking down a portion of our city into the underground. Like that can happen in real life. Like I suppose you can have a tornado and an earthquake at the same time, but from a storytelling perspective, it seems weird to me. But I don't have it doesn't mean it's impossible. It just doesn't feel story-y, if that makes sense. So those things, if they happen, they're so, my point is, if those things happened, they happen so far apart that it stretches some of the other connections, right? Like it would have to be so far away from the War of the Dragon, or when the Dragons and the War of the Giants, which we kind of have established a chronology and an order for those two things. This would either have to happen so far before that or so far after that it almost feels like they wouldn't have the same like references. It would fly in the face of the bleed through that we have between the two cultures. Does that make a sense?
That makes sense. The time frame is very confusing to me. And I just imagine Miyazaki tweeting some random time at like 2 a.m. saying, "Oh yes, the Elden Ring was shattered 3,000 years ago," and just the implications of having a real number of that time frame. Because
amazing move.
Amazing move. Imagine if Biden and Trump couldn't die for 3,000 years, and people try and discuss the history of what happened over that time. It's like when all the same names and same groups of people, and 1,000 years down there, they could easily build all these cities, have a rise of 80s pop culture and a decline, and then it would come back again.
Yeah, swing dance. One of the things that's interesting about it and does kind of support that idea that it could be so far in the ancient past is we're told over and over that these cities have been destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, and struck low. Comparatively, in the world of Elden Ring, they're doing pretty good. They have patrols. They have like the active defenses set up.
Yeah.
They, don't have, it seems like stuff's still happening there. It doesn't feel like a ruins as much as some areas of the game.
Yeah. I wish we could see more of the culture, more of like what they do in their downtime. All of these times we go to, the Volcano Manor. I guess we do see a lot of the torch rooms, but we go to Lanedale. I wanted to be able to go more exploring into their houses and see their beds and their couches and stuff. Instead of the doors are locked pretty firmly shut.
They're just down there
Lindell,
waiting for the
all
night.
you get is war. All you do is get war stuff in Lindell. Like you get their perfumers, kind of chambers where they were preparing and stuff like that.
That's pretty
and
stunning.
You get worship. Like that stuff's neat. You can get that, so they were a place in war. Here we do all we get, I feel like in Nokron and Noxtella is ceremony. There are tons of temples. There are lots of rooms with an ornate treasure chest that's being guarded. There are huge, like vaulted, cathedral-like rooms. It has like this intense air of religiosity to me.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. That's what the only thing I can pick up from the culture other than like well defended and patrolled by, ant riding ladies.
I wish, though, if they saw me carrying my cute little Ronnie doll, they would say, maybe this guy is on our side a little bit.
Yeah, I'll summon the mimic tier. I can do it too, guys.
They're like, look, that guy's got a cute doll. We should maybe say hello first.
Yeah.
But yeah, no blind animosity from everyone all the time. One thing I do really appreciate about the Nox, though, is that not only are they, very spiritual with outer space, which I feel the same way. They're also scientists. They're also creating a lot of things down there. whether or not they should make ChatGPT, they are down there making it.
Mimic GPT. They're making a lord. I love that. Like the idea of them, either if they can't raise a lord up and promote one, they'll create one, out of these human making things. It's this running theme, you look at it with the Albinaurics as well, creating life, the Albinaurics and also the dolls, the mannequins and stuff. Like everyone is making facsimiles of life in this world. And they were trying to take it to the top with these mimics. It's real neat. And them applying that kind of like protean liquid metal tech to all of their stuff. It's huge.
Yeah, big breakthrough. I imagine Mr. Knox scientist, William Knox, when he was deciding how big should the Elden Lord be, he's like 7 stories, dude. I don't care.
Why doesn't the Elden Lord simply eat all the other lords? We're finally going to make it happen.
We're taking a dragon's head. We're just going to attach it to this guy, and maybe that'll be a lord.
Bigger.
We're underground. Bigger. We are limited on vertical space.
Yeah. Well, we'll go as tall as we can then. I don't care. Just do it.
Yeah. It's the giants, the big things, like the making the big lords. Like one of my favorite, all-time favorite images and most frustrating lore questions in the game are those gigantic skeletons that are chock-a-block down here.
Yeah.
Quite literally the coolest thing, one of the coolest things I see in my playthrough, and you walk into that arena and you're like, that thing's going to get up and fight me. And then just another jabroni comes in.
This little jabroni.
His little pet, his dragonborn hound of Noxtella comes out and fights you. But those gigantic guys, like there's not a whole lot to them.
Yeah.
Like you don't get to learn very much about them. There's that Zuli the Witch video where they talk about how the internal name for the Mariners, Tibia Mariners, is Night King's kin. And they summon giant skeletons. And that's true. But giant skeletons, I don't know. That's pretty vague. I don't know what those guys are. If they're trying to make a mimic version of a giant skeleton, because my understanding of the mimics, like when you kill the mimics, they don't leave a corpse, right? They melt into a husk that we get and we can use for crafting. If this thing, these gigantic statues, if that's supposed to be a mimic or a crafted Night King, is it still alive? Because otherwise it should dissolve and like desiccate the same way that the mimic tears do.
Or maybe it was never able to like properly come alive. I do like that idea though of it being like a mimic giant.
Just getting all your goop together, like buying all the Play-Doh sets and just like putting together in a big pile.
We're out in Nokron. We're gonna have to go to Noxtella to get more of this goop. I don't know, man. Put it in the coffin, send them down.
What do you fellas take on those giant skeletons?
I thought we were going to get a lot more information, or at least fight one, seeing as though one is in the loading screen at the beginning of the game. So I had seen one for a long time before I ran into my first one. And like you said, I was like, oh shit, this thing's going to get up and fight me. And I'm not prepared to fight anything in the game at any given point. I do a lot of running away. So I was immediately afraid. After beating his little dragonkin warrior, you go underneath a throne and there's a chest, and I was really hoping for some lore, some information, maybe a side quest. I wanted to find out about
the giant's toenail, and it's a shield.
Yeah. Oh, that would be dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sharp.
Like I use his pinky finger as a sword or something. Like, give me something.
We do get a finger later.
I know, but I want his.
You want his?
I want
finger.
dual wield.
Yeah. I need multiple digits.
Hey, sign of the devil. I need to be able to get a pinky and a pointer.
Yeah. Dual wield them.
Yeah.
And my take is something similar to yours. These are the lords that they were trying to create. I imagine they were failures. I don't want to be an 8-story tall dude living in a regular sized village for any reason.
That was Andre the Giant's whole life.
Yeah, like you have to drink a case of beer to get like 4 beers in you.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you die from it.
Yeah.
So like not only not only that, but it also kills you.
The growing pains must have been horrible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, there's those thrones that they sit on. I'm pretty sure there's one in Celia that is being guarded by the Nox there as well, that above ground. I don't have any solid answers. I think maybe the giants in Caelid that we find like grown into the ground could be associated with them. I do like you mentioned the Night's King and like the original text for the Night Lord, the Lord of Night, which is who the Nox are waiting to finally usher in the Age of the Stars. In Japanese, it's the Night King, which sounds very George R. R. Martin, which maybe they avoided the English translation. They didn't want to have Night King here because it would have been a little too on the nose.
It would have been the crossover of the century.
Yeah.
And they didn't want that.
Confirmed, Arya Stark is in Leyndell. I would hate that lore video. I would, I'd draw the line somewhere.
Dude, she's got faces. Yeah. She could blend right in.
Yeah, so
shit. Essentially
it's all associated with, and it's what it is though is pretty. One of my favorite Reddit answers to when I was looking was, "Who are the Nox?" And then Farts McGee with one upvote wrote, "Sad Newman." And I'm like, I think that is as valid as the 100 paragraphs I just read.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
They're down there waiting for the night, spinning their Blue Oyster Cult and My Chemical Romance albums. Just super sad boys.
Again, the way the timeline stuff stymies everything and raises, or at least complicates everything. If they're associated with the Newman, if they're just literally Newman, when because we don't know very much canonically about the Newman, but one of the only things we do know is that they're not from here.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be former people who had fallen down from Leyndell. They wouldn't be people who just, grew up here for a long time. They'd have to be out of towners from areas we don't get. We don't, unlike most like from soft games, we don't get histories of other kingdoms beyond the lands. Really, we have the lands between, and then we have everything else. The only thing we know about that being Newman and the Land of Reeds. There are two zones.
And Aacade a little bit.
Yeah.
But 3 sentences is enough for me to think about all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting. If they're Newman, they arrived a long time ago, long enough to have all of this history.
So I don't even watch a lot of Seinfeld, but every time I grab a Newman's rune, I squint my eyes and go, Newman. I don't even watch a lot of Seinfeld, and that is just burned in my brain every time I see it.
But you know that joke.
Yeah. And yes.
He hates that guy.
I just hate those Newmen. I'm glad those ants are eating those bastards.
Seinfeld just absolutely hates that man. If it's mostly a comedy about how one adult man hates his mail carrier.
Who, by all accounts, they could probably be best friends.
He's kind of a little slime, but he's no more slimy than everyone else he hangs out with.
That entire show is a bunch of really fun to watch slime.
Yeah. They're all kind of really bad people.
Yeah, awful people.
And so the Nox were banished underground. We're almost ready to get out of the lore section here. But I just also wanted to mention the Ool people, which they were an ancient civilization that actually did live underground. And a lot of the architecture, you can tell there's like a sharp difference between Ool architecture and like the grand, like Gothic looking buildings of the Nox. But if you see those statues like a giant bearded man, that is the Ool. And the Claymen, whose most notable thing is they like bubbles. So I can get behind that. There's always that one person at like a concert that brings their bubbles. I'm like, the Claymen have arrived. And I can get behind that. But the Ool are down there, and at least like the remnants are down there as well.
The Ool also were on the surface.
Yeah.
The Ool have a whole zone. And the Ool are also associated with the ancestral worshippers, who are somehow not associated with the Nox, other than just by proximity.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, the way I think of it is like Newman, Nox, Noxtella, Night, Celia, all goes to the Nox and the underground cities. And then Ool ancestral worshippers, Shofra, all of that area, that's all for the ancestor worshippers. It's almost like two separate underground societies down there that have constellations of associations.
I just love the complex interrelationships. It feels like a real world, and it's it's always interesting to just take in something without knowing exactly what you're looking at, because it gets my imagination moving. Why are the messengers from Bloodborne down here? And that one got me thinking too.
I was playing this in front of my wife, and my wife was watching me, and she's like, "What happened to those guys?" And I had to go, "Fuck if I know." You know what? That's actually a great question. Are they statues? Are they people?
It looks bad.
What's going on with those guys? It looks like it hurt. They have the same proportions a little bit of those little guys that shoot the arrows at you, the frost arrows.
The fallen hawks.
Yes. They have the same kind of proportions a little bit as those guys, like gross skin and stuff. But that's the only thing I could figure out with them. But it's getting grilled on lore shit by my wife, who does not actually know. And it hasn't played the game, is very funny.
It puts you in check.
You know what, sweetheart? I don't know. Good question. You got me. Don't go telling the internet.
Looks cool, huh?
Yeah.
I know, gnarly,
Look,
right?
I can climb up on top of this one and put a message on it. Isn't that neat?
Yeah. On our Discord, we just kind of have conversations open for anyone to post things. And my brother posted, "Do you think Sir Gideon might be a Newman or related or a Nox because of the color of his eyes?" And I was like, "Oh, Brian, I did not want to have to look into this today." But I did my due diligence and I got a couple paragraphs. But we're heading down now into the crater, and we see the meteor has destroyed part of Nokron, and we start jumping across these rooftops, and we get introduced to what I imagine is our first time running into these enemies, the little silver tier husks. And these are fun little blobby boys. It's Alex Mack, the secret life of Alex Mack, essentially.
One thing I love about them is that they use them for 2 callbacks in terms of from history. One's real subtle. Eventually they give them shields, and they're like the Phalanx enemies from Demon Souls and the Painted World of Ariamis in Dark Souls. But when they stretch out into spears, they look a lot like a cut enemy from Demon Souls, from the 6th Archstone. There were mimic kind of slime enemies that really look like these. And if you look up any of the restoration work that was done on the 6th Archstone, you can see kind of a prototype version of these guys. So they're a weird gameplay callback in a couple different ways.
Yeah, I've never actually played Demon Souls. I have the remake, and Dark Souls is always just kind of standing behind my shoulder looking mean at me. I feel its gaze. It's like, "Brad, you should play me. You love Bloodborne. You donated half your leg to Bloodborne. You think about Elden Ring. You've talked about it for 20 hours. Why have you not played me?" And I don't turn around. I don't turn around because I'm scared.
It's got a point, Brad. But it's one of the fun things about, time is fine. I don't pressure anyone to do anything. I understand. But like, one of the things that's fun about playing the old games is seeing how much Elden Ring is in conversation with this lineage. There are a lot of those little callbacks. I don't think that they're usually lore significant. I tend to think of them as just neat.
Yeah.
Seeing them kind of reuse sounds crass, like refine like a lot of these ideas.
Yeah. I know when I listen to Bonfireside Chat, there are times y'all will mention, "Oh, this weapon is like, I think one of the swords you get in Ronnie's Quest is like one that you get in the prior games."
Oh, yeah.
And that's a perspective that I don't get to have because I haven't been through those. And it's those callbacks. And I also hear everyone on Elden Ring talk, like, discussions like, "Oh, it's a Berserk reference again. It's Berserk. It's Berserk."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't played many. I haven't played the other From Software games, but I do look forward to going back and kind of seeing these callouts. But I have read quite a bit of Berserk, and there is a lot peppered in.
Yeah,
which is just super.
That will follow you back to all of the games. All of the games are chock full of Berserk stuff.
That just makes me
some
so
of
happy.
It actionably. Like the in the religion arc of Berserk, the skeletons that are in the wagon wheels, that's just literally an enemy in like a bunch of Dark Souls
games.
Awesome. 1-to-1. Yeah, they're just like, "That's a cool idea. Let's steal it." It's real fun.
Yeah. At what point is it an homage, or is it theft, because I know George R. R. Martin just takes Lovecraft ideas and he just tucks them away in corners.
Yeah.
He's like,
They're deep ones.
he's like, there's oily
just
black
straight up has
stones.
monsters.
He mentioned just oily
Yeah.
black stones sometimes, and people are like, oh yeah, that's a Lovecraft one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, we start jumping around these buildings and we see these cute little silverchaires, which are kind of replacing people in general, because they can, while they cannot have a pretty face, they can turn into a spear or an arrow, which I guess is something.
They eventually do, which makes me think a lot about the Albinaurics. You know, how we have different generations of Albinaurics. Like, we can have them look human, but their legs don't work, or they can look like the funniest little frog man that's ever existed, and they're better at combat. With these guys, we have the blobs that are really rudimentary. They can do just turn themselves into a spike.
Baby blobs.
Baby blobs, baby bloblets. You know, you think about Teenage Ninja not Teenage Mutant Turtles, Terminator 2, where they're explaining the T-2000 to John Connor, and he's like, "Why doesn't he just turn his hand to a gun and kill me?" And Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, "He can only make simple weapons, blades." That's what these guys are like. And then we get ones that can hold shields. Then we get ones that have this kind of electrical power, like they're on the cusp. And then we get ones that can turn into people.
You mean police officers?
Yeah, exactly. The ABAB, like all blobs are bastards. We get ones that can just turn into people. Like, so you actually see the evolution of their technology and their genetics. If they're trying to make a lord, we see all the steps of this Pokemon evolution. Like, here we're fighting Charizards, or Charmanders. You know, and eventually we're going to find mighty Charizards.
All right, Gary. Well, I'll follow your Pokemon reference here. I see the Charmander to Charizard. When does the Silver Sphere? What Pokemon is that?
That's a Zapdos or something. That's an
ultra rare one.
Yeah. That's specifically designed to make me laugh every single time it pops up. So that's there just as a little treat for Gary. That's what that is.
You know, you walk in a room and you start clicking the lock-on button, and you don't expect it to be a ball on the ceiling.
It's the best surprise motherfucker moments.
Is that a disco ball?
That happen in this game? Those big things roll at you, just like
the killer disco ball that no one took down after that party.
I like to think that those could change into, you know, something big, even, you know, a giant, you know, almost like those giant skeletons. But it's just better to be the ball.
The spheres can turn into trolls, I think, at one point. I think in Nokron, right before the Finger Slayer blade, it does. I think I got a troll one time.
So it's not one of the big balls that do. It's one of the small globs.
Yeah, one of the small globs. But no, not one of the. I've never seen the big one turn anything. And that would be really cool if it did.
That'd be incredible. What if it turned into just a gigantic slime with a huge spear, or one of those skeleton monsters, or like anything?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. That'd be rad.
Yeah, so we're jumping across these rooftops, and eventually we do get to see the elevator where we went down the first time a long time ago, and that's a nice moment when your brain puts that together. You're like, oh, okay, I know where I'm at.
Well, I kind of know where I'm at because I'm always lost.
And we drop down a few rooftops, so we run into the Fallen Hawks, which are an enemy unique to this area, and I love these little zombie dudes. Band of soldiers that once explored the Eternal City. When the band's last embers were used up in their long search, they began to burn the bones of their fellows. So that's how they got the cold ghost flame, which causes frostbite. And these guys, we learned from some of their shield descriptions. The inverted hawk is the emblem of the company of slaves ordered to explore the Eternal City. And the hawk is associated with Stormvale. So my brain put together that these were the original Stormlord's people, soldiers. And when Godric took over, he sent them down below. It could be a few steps in between, but that's kind of, I think that they're from Stormvale in some way. Just with the hawks.
They could be from when Godric was there, or from when the Storm King, the Stormhawk King, was around, because you get the sense they've been down here for a long time, especially if those corpses that kind of look like them are also remnants, you know, the statue corpses.
Yeah.
That's basically, I think, that where me and Cole landed as well. I don't know that we were certain that Godric sent them down. Because it could have been if Godric sent them down to get the Finger Slayer blade, that's like super, that would make sense. He might want that just to hedge his bets, as a little slime ball.
He does have that little fun room of like forbidden religion stuff.
Yeah.
He keeps his Quran back there for when his mom comes over.
he's got a porno magazine and then the Quran's on the inside so you can hide what he's reading.
Mom, it's not what it looks like. I thought you were just looking at smut.
Yeah. Well, man, grafting porn. I don't like that.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, they're getting some like first sequence human centipede shit or boxing Elena shit.
Godric just straight up grafted metal nuts to himself instead of the truck.
I think Dylan and I looked up some Rule 34 grafted stuff.
Yeah,
and we were like, turn around, go back. No,
whenever Dylan's here, we're talking about stuff, and he has this fun game where he's like, let's see if that Rule 34s, and it always does.
Always does.
Yeah. But yeah, so these guys being just a lost expedition. One of the cool things I like about these guys is they do only show up here, which is surprisingly rare for Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Like when you're playing it, it really does seem like each area is going to have kind of an enemy type. And then that turns out not to be true. It's such a huge game that, hands show up basically everywhere.
Yeah.
Albinorics show up a lot of places, things like that. These guys they have a story. They came here, they had a doomed expedition. It's like Mountains of Madness shit. And discovered a lost art, discovered this cold ghost flame. But now they're cursed. They're stuck. They can't get back out.
I think that maybe one of the reasons that the Albinorics and like the finger creepers wound up being so proliferated is because they're just so damn cool. They saw the Albinorics doing cartwheels and they're like, well, we're fucked.
How am I supposed to compete with that?
We're putting them everywhere. Oh yes, this one's going to be soaked in blood and 20 cartwheels.
A cool point that he makes about those, I think, is true, is that they also fulfill a gameplay purpose, So, like, one of the reasons why finger creepers are showing up everywhere is they need an ambush enemy. They need an enemy that ambushes you, that's this amount of aggression, that's this kind of, degree of complication and moveset. They serve a gameplay purpose as well as kind of a lore and locational purpose.
Yeah, I just love the tragic story of theirs. They're a company of slaves forced to go down there and go to bed, little buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never see you again.
Yep. It was good seeing you this one time.
Yep.
And you have, Gary, ruined the next little section for me because you made a mention about how this Nox person was walking their pet mimic tear, and that's all I can see now when I come around this corner.
Yeah, yeah. I would keep them as pets.
It'd be a fun pet if they were on your side.
Oh yeah, I don't want there to be MMO mounts and all that garbage added to this stuff, but if there was, I'd be in trouble because like if you could buy a pet in this game, like you're spoiled for choice. A miniature like knee-high albinaric, finger creeper, even a little marionette. Into it. I'd even take one of the shitty Albinorics that just drag themselves around. You just have a little buddy with you. I'd take it.
Put it on a little cart.
Yeah. Just a woeful lack of merchandising for this stuff. Like I can buy on Etsy 1,000 warrior jars, and that's great, and I have. But I still also like. It's just stupid that I can't buy a basilisk.
Yeah. An enemy so revered and feared as the basilisk, you don't see a plushie.
No, yeah. I want one though. Old deer.
Even just Ronnie's doll. Like that. Yeah. That's marketing right there. Like it's literally a doll.
They'd have to make them pretty resilient with the people who would be buying them. People are taking them to sit at Perkins with them when they go out to eat.
Second thought, now I don't want a Ronnie's doll.
I'll take a grand slam.
You talked me out of it, Brad.
No, you just want the one that puts in your pocket and you squeeze it and it goes, kill that shadow or whatever.
Yeah, kill those fingers.
We will get the age of the
playing
stars.
Mumbly Peg. At Denny's and just
playing hard to get. Like you'll never be my husband.
Mumbly Peg. Do you think that do you know what I mean by Mumbly Peg? Isn't that the name of the knife finger game?
Oh, okay. Where you stab the knife around the fingers.
Yeah.
Is that what that's
Yeah,
called?
I think so. I think it's called Mumbly Peg.
I always just called it like a bad time
The
or the game you don't play.
The silliest, most fun-sounding, goofy name for one of the most horrifying things.
A way in high school for one of your friends to stab themselves in the finger with a compass.
Yeah.
Very easily. I just if you're getting the Finger Slayer blade and getting the 2 fingers and being like, it's time to play, motherfucker, and then doing Mumbly Peg on them is very funny to me. I don't know. I got distracted. Caffeine hasn't quite hit the bloodstream yet.
I play Mumbly Peg.
I do it sometimes with something like a blunt object, and I'm like, I'm really good at this. I should graduate to the big leagues, and then I don't graduate to the big leagues because that's stabbing myself with a knife.
I just play at like 1% speed, and I think it's still intense.
I put on trainers.
I went full power once with a paintbrush and drew blood and was like, "That's no." Why do people play this with an actual blade?
Vietnam reasons, maybe. Like maybe it was guys who had their brains broken in Vietnam.
It's called being a man.
Yeah. It's the I don't know.
I'm just still thinking about how mimic tears would make great pets because I'm like, you're a cat today. Now I want a dog.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Like now I want a plant. I just I need to be uninterrupted, be a plant.
And someday you come home and it's this giant sphere and it can't get out of your bedroom.
Ah, shit. Now I got to move.
Or way darker. Like you come home one day and it's you.
And it's making shitty
it's
puns and started
locks.
a podcast. And
oh, that's way better than the changing the locks and doing your job that I was expecting.
Great.
Now I got to fight this thing. Just got back from vacation.
And it can turn into anything.
Well, speaking of mimic tears, we run into our first boss down here. We run into what's the name of the boss? Is it just it's just mimic tear. The mimic tear, yeah, the mimic tear.
Yeah.
And this is a very cheesable fight because you walk in, like barehanded or using just a dagger, and then you just change right when you walk in.
But you don't know that at the time.
No, not at the time. But when you go back and do it again, it is incredibly easy.
Oh, wait. So you're saying you can just unequip everything, go in, it'll spawn unarmed, and then you can... I've never gone back to actually play that part again.
Yeah, it kind of functions similar to the way that your Mimic Tear does. It's got its own limitations, but whatever is like your default weapon when you start the battle, it's kind of what they use. They're limited to what they can do, though. They can't use like rune arcs. They get like one flask. They don't get as many as you.
They can't use pots.
No. I think they can if you're equipped to them. I think they can use pots if you go and equip to them. I could be wrong about that. That might be a thing that changed with the Mimic Tier summon, because it used to be able to use pots and perfumes and stuff. Brad, I assume, or do you fellas know about the deleted content around the Mimic Tier summon?
I know I do.
That you have?
Brad sent me a video on it.
I love sending Tyler random videos saying, watch 40 minutes about this.
And then I do.
This is, that makes me think that, because that would have been a boss fight, the Mimic Tier, at the end of that quest line, when the Mimic Tier that you took with you decides to make a play for being the Lord. I think that this was probably that.
Yeah.
Like it's that this is that repurposed, not that it doesn't make sense here or anything like that, but it would have been weird to have this and have the end of that quest be another mimic fight.
Well, there's one other mimic fight in the game on the way to the consecrated snowfields. There's a hidden one in there too.
Yeah. Where you can do that. You're right. I forget that zone because that zone is big and confusing. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I assume this is the closest we get to that, experiencing that cut quest line.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, the cut content is something that I haven't really looked into yet, but it is fascinating that they had all of this, like that one quest where you need to get sleep alcohol for people and you get them to go to bed. And as a lover of fine drinks, that's like, dang, that would have been a cool one. But I have a feeling all of that stuff was written and done, and then they wanted to put ambiguity back into certain things or save some of the content for the Mikola DLC, which I'm confidently saying.
Yeah, I noticed you confidently said Mikola.
Yeah.
It'd be a very hilarious troll if it was just had nothing to do with anything.
It's young Godric. He actually was a pretty blonde hair.
It's like young Sheldon.
At the end of
but
the DLC, you discovered crafting. And you're
Episode 1, the Phantom Godric or something.
everybody hates Godric.
Who's playing young Chris Rock?
That is what they did with Dark Souls 3. Playing Dark Souls 3, we spent the entire time waiting for the last DLC to take us to a really obvious place that they constantly hinted about. There are all these characters from this area. It was really cool. And they just swerved and went in an entirely different direction with it. So like, I think it probably will be Mikola. I want it to be Mikola. I have questions I want answered. I have danced this dance before where they've just totally been like, nah, you're going to this new place we made up. And here's a bunch of new stuff.
Yeah, and Miyazaki we trust, I guess.
Hey, he follows his own tune. I'm super excited regardless, obviously. But I'm like 80% sure it's Mikola. But that 20% as like a sicko pervert would make me a little happy. Just like, oh, you fucker. Like,
How Godric got his fourth arm. The DLC.
Yeah, the Arm Chronicles. It's Bionic Commando 2.
You might not recognize me, Han Solo, because this arm is red.
Yeah.
Shut up, Godric. For the love of God, why are you here? Yeah, we fight the Mimic Tier, though. We get through that, and we get to this like little ancestral follower area here, the Hollow Horn grounds. And I always like seeing these horned
beasts
just dancing, singing songs. Like, they seem like a cool people until they get mad.
In my opinion, some of the more interesting enemies you'll run into, because they seem kind of tribal. Like, you're interrupting. Like, I don't know if it's a ritual or just what they do in their spare time.
Yeah.
But those arrows that they throw at you, they mean business. So I'm gonna go with you interrupted something.
Well, they're sitting there frolicking with deer and singing songs, and we show up and
murder everything.
Just this massacre monster. And this is one of those times where I feel like the bad guy, because they're very much just trying to get back to nature. They're out camping. They got their kids with them. They see a deer.
They're going full Disney princess with it.
And we show
don't feel too bad for the kids. Given what these guys do with their kids.
You make sick key items out of them?
Yeah, I don't I don't know that they do have their kid. I mean, they are camping with their kids. What you're saying is technically true. The same way that I camp with like a 6-pack, or I camp with a cooler, or I camp with a lawn chair.
This is my child, my Bud Light.
Yeah, it is there, but it's not participating.
Yeah, you don't really run into children at all anymore, because doesn't reproduction no longer work in the lands between? Like, I think there's one item that says sex is possible, but people forgot the point or something.
Yeah, they actually address it in a weird way. I can't remember the item, but you're right. I remember that.
What's the point of grafting all these wieners? I mean,
is it just a giant dusty prophylactic that you find?
I suppose so. We know some kids have, in the somewhat too recent, because people take their omen young, so we know that kids are being born because we had to have these cursed kids at some point.
Yeah.
But we don't know when that shut off. Again, timeline stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But these guys are not good with their kids. I don't have all the item descriptions right in front of me, but they don't do good stuff for their kids.
Yeah.
These guys.
One of the items we can find is the ancestral infant's head, which I believe this head is one of the like ancestral spirits, because they call the ancestral followers because I think they follow the big deer spirits.
Yeah.
Whatever they want to call. So I think that the ancestral infant's head might be one of those infants, but this is, a tool that can be used to spawn geysers that damage enemies that pass through it. It's one of those things that sounds cool and great lore and looks fine, but I'll never use.
Yep.
All the hunter's tool items in this game are not good.
Yeah.
Like any of the things you put in your item slot to use FP to cast a spell, you'd be better served casting a spell or using a weapon art. Like 10 times out of 10 in this game. They're real weird items. They're not useful.
Or you just throw pots at them.
Yeah, exactly. You have so many options for that
pots.
kind of thing. Like, they're great. Apparently, a consumable only run or a consumable almost only run can be insanely powerful in this.
Sure.
Like when I got to the credits, I was like, man, somebody's going to make a perfumer build, and that's real cool. That's real fun, like as from a role playing perspective and such. And then not quite a perfumer build, but if you look at it, you can max out damage on pots and throw knives and fan knives and stuff and melt bosses as easily as you can with like a bunch of weird one shot buff builds.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible to take almost any build and make it viable as long as you know what you're doing with it.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be cool to do a consumable build like that, but use like a bow and arrow, and like just be an archer.
I tried being a dedicated archer, and it takes a lot of arrows.
You gotta do a lot of hunting.
Yeah.
Lots of arrows. And then the weird counterintuitive thing, because I have an abbreviated archer build as well, is that you want a short bow.
Yeah.
Because you can jump an attack, which ends up being hugely important for some reason. So it's really contrary to what you think. Like you're like, oh, I want the best, most powerful bow, but really you need maneuverability and such.
Oh.
Because you have to make distance.
And you just wind up going out there and you kill like every goat you run into and you feel bad about it, but you need those thin beast bones.
Yep.
You have to sell part of your soul to be an archer.
A very funny part about playing this in front of my wife, her being like, why'd you kill that dog? And just being like, I don't know.
Like, he was there.
Yeah, looked at me funny. For me, it was Tuesday. I don't know.
You could have made it up like, oh, this is possessed by a demon child.
It's all kinds of lore.
Yeah.
Like that's actually Barkulon, the untethered, some kind of
And she would say, oh, fascinating.
Yeah, she would know. She hasn't played it yet.
Yeah. There's another one of these puzzles where you have to go light up a bunch of torches to get inside to fight another ancestral spirit. Here is the regal ancestral spirit, much like the previous one, and another fight that you almost have to try to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one's a little harder. It's interesting the way this one heals itself by sucking up its
The
ghost
wildlife.
buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a neat idea.
I like that it also it uses an attack based on what it absorbed.
Yeah.
So if it absorbs a goat, it does like the roll attack.
That's so neat, but you'll never really see it, because he'll die sooner than that.
Yeah.
You'll never notice it.
You have to just be in there for an hour just trying to bait it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice music.
Yeah.
Fight.
I do like these battles because it's very atmospheric, which I do appreciate. And but before we move past the Hollowhorn grounds, we're going to go back a little bit to the sacred, what is this, the sacred grounds? Is that what this is called here? The Knight's Sacred Ground. And this is kind of, I'd say, Nokron proper, because a lot of what we were in before was just jumping over buildings and walking over the aqueduct. But this is some more rooftop jumping and kind of leading you downwards to the sacred ground. I actually like this spot quite a bit. This was when I started noticing the messengers. I call them messengers from Bloodborne. They could be the Fallen Hawks. They could be whatever. But I like this sequence quite a bit. This made me really afraid of mimic tears. You want to kill them fast before they can turn into potentially people instead of just spears.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you realize that, this area is like 10 times easier.
Yeah.
That you have to have a distance. But if you're pure melee build, like this is pretty tricky because you have to jump down there and fight 2 NPC invaders at once.
Yep. And down here you can get the Black Wet Blade. You can apply an affinity using physical or occult type Ashes of War. I sadly don't do much with any of the Ashes of War because I always use unique weapons that have unique skills, but I definitely should dive into that. And there's so much to this game that I haven't even touched.
Yeah.
But this is also where we can find our good friend, the Mimic Tier. This one's just kept in a treasure chest, which I don't know if they're bored, how sentient they are when they're... This is, I guess, spirit ashes of a Mimic Tier. So I don't know if it's like a Pokeball they're in before you summon them or what.
I was going to say, think about it like a Pokeball.
Yeah.
We see Seluvis with his puppets, which can function as summons as well. I don't think that means that every time we summon something, there's a physical version, like sitting in a pervert basement somewhere, but it could be a Pokemon kind of scenario. It's the idea that this is a treasure chest. I thought about that a lot. I don't know that this is representing, a mimic tier. It almost feels like something they could summon, almost like a defensive item.
Yeah.
Is you could take this with you to summon one of these things on demand as, if you venture to the surface world or what have you. We only have one other enemy that summons spirits. We have the Neil, the commander guys.
Yeah.
Who summon spirits against you. Like typically enemies don't do that, but there's no reason to think maybe the Nox couldn't have done that. We just don't see it.
I wonder if because we do see snails down there in Noxtella. I wonder.
Oh yeah, snails do it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if the Nox learned it from snails, because I was getting the vibes that the Nox kind of originated the spirit ashes potentially as they're all about repurposing life and recreating life, and I was thinking maybe they created spirit ashes, but maybe they were just studying snails and got it from them. Those snails in Noxtella, they're very hissy compared to the ones before. Like every one of them just screams at me before.
They got something to say.
There's nothing like a snail ambush when you're going down one of those hallways and 8 snails just drop down and yell at you.
I love it.
Yeah.
Good boys.
Yeah.
Those snails and the skull snails, the skull snake snail things, great enemies.
I forgot about those.
Yeah, I think that there is a missed opportunity to have way more boss fights based on spirit caller snails, because they can just start summoning anyone. And I think that was that would be an excuse to have a misbegotten soldier fighting with a crucible knight, just have the spirit caller snail summoning them. Yeah, almost like the witches of Henwick Charnel Lane. Yeah, if you can find the spirit caller snail, you can stop them before things.
There's that one boss fight that's that.
Yeah.
One of the catacombs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Up on the mountaintops of the giants. I just love angry little snails that can somehow imprison potentially people or spirit ashes and then just summon them at their will. Yeah, snails.
Go snails. Maybe that's the mascot for this town.
That's a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the Nokron silver tears and the Noxtella silver spheres.
Mm-hmm. They also real good.
They get confused because they have the same jersey color, but
yeah.
Also down here we can get the Nox flowing hammer, and I do just love the Nox weaponry where, super stretchy, kind of sword whips. A lot of them are hammer whips, and a lot of their technology is kind of built around stretchy silver. But someone was trying to tell me that those things might be sentient because they're made out of the same material, and I hope not, but maybe.
That's an interesting idea.
Made out of the same material as the mimic tears?
Yeah, it's all silver goop.
That would be cool.
It's worth noting we don't have any reason in game other than that cut content to think that the mimic tiers are sentient in game. Or sentient like a human would be, right?
Yeah.
Rather, they behave like animals.
Yeah.
In game, the simple ones obviously, but even the ones that turn to NPC invaders only fight you. There's nothing to show that they have agency.
I wish that they could use gestures.
That'd be great. That'd be real funny.
That'd be really wild.
That'd be very good, especially the one that dresses up as you. The one you fight that comes in as a copy as you.
It does the suck it gesture from Degeneration X.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is me.
The pretty twirl and stuff. But yeah, so if the mimic tiers are sentient, I imagine the weapons could be sentient, but I don't know in the game as it is if they are. It could be a tool, an AI. Again, Blob GPT.
Blob GPT. Yeah, that's the name of the episode. So under our big statue, our big corpse here, the giant corpse, we find the Finger Slayer blade, and I think that they must have been they must have used it at least one point, because it says the blood drenched blade, blood drenched fetish. So they must have stabbed something. Maybe they were playing Mumble Peggy or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Mumble Peggy. Yeah,
it does work on fingers, guys. Look.
Yeah, you're right. It's proof of the treason committed. I guess its existence would be proof of a treason committed if it wasn't blood soaked. But yeah, it's tasted blood. They stabbed a finger with it. of some kind.
Just because I have upside down crucifixes in my house doesn't mean that I am not a Christian.
Yeah. It could be.
I'll go to court.
The case of an earthquake or something. Faulty nail.
I just am not good with a hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing though, if you do pick up this Finger Slayer blade, which isn't actually a weapon you can use, but it locks you out of some quests. Yeah. Once you open this up, which you can't do until you progress Ronnie far enough, once you have this and give it to Ronnie, it immediately ends Seluvis's quest, and it causes Rajier to go to sleep, which my first playthrough, I was heartbroken that I missed some of these.
So picking that up will kill Rajier?
Essentially, I mean, he sleeps
He still
to
kind of
death.
makes noises. Yeah, he makes noises. Still, he kind of go there, but it kills Seluvis.
I was fine with that.
Oh yeah, that guy's a real monster.
Yeah, I was totally fine with that.
I haven't got to experience Seluvis at all. My first playthrough, I missed all of it, and then by the time I came back, he was just a corpse. And I want to make sure on one of my playthroughs that I'm working on now to get fully to the point where me and Seluvis try and kill Ronnie, and it goes horribly because I also want to get those. You need to get far enough with Seluvis to get the Dung Eater Spirit Ashes as well as the Nefeli Lu Spirit Ashes, and I want to get both of those.
Yeah. Well, it's an either or.
Yep.
You can only get one or the other, sadly, but they're fun to get, and it's fun. You obviously can't succeed in plotting against Ronnie, but it's fun to try. It's a fun scene with fun dialogue. So it's fun to do once.
Yeah, she knows everything. I can see your search history, dude.
Yeah. So this, the idea like this cannot be wielded with those without a fate is really interesting. That terminology is used multiple times to block you along this quest path. If you are not working with Ronnie, even though you might want to explore down here, you will continuously run into like this. There's a barrier later that says cannot be passed by those without a fate.
Yeah.
Things like that. You need to tie your fate up with Ronnie to do this. And it's a huge section of the game.
Yeah.
Like this is what leads to that entire southwestern portion of Liurnia. It's really wild that you have to lock yourself into this, this ending path, which all of these correspond to an ideology, that you want for the lands between. You have to actually fully commit before even a huge swath of the map opens up to you. That's a really interesting demand on the player, I think.
Yeah. I also do have a problem though, where with whoever I'm hanging out with, I mirror their personalities. So I will just like hang out with Goldmask. I'm like, yeah, I'm totally into this. Well,
sounds good, man.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah. Like, good seeing you. Say hi to your mother for me.
That's crazy is the number one thing that Goldmask hears. Like, Goldmask at a party is a powerful fucking curse.
Dude, who brought him?
That's crazy,
I told you
man.
not to bring him.
Yeah. Oh man, is he gonna bring that stupid hat?
COVID's over, bro.
Yeah.
He's just pointing at the light in the kitchen.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that salutes at like a flag on a war film.
Yeah, he stands up. You're just like you're watching a football game at home. He stands up for the national anthem, and you're just like, "Come on, man!"
Yeah,
He set the bar too high.
we went and saw a Star Wars orchestra recently, and the number of people that cheered like when they blew up Starkiller Base, I was like, it didn't really happen, guys. I'm happy it did, but I mean, I don't know if they can hear us clapping, but there was a lot of clapping.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so the Finger Slayer blade is it's interesting. The Nox were upset with the Golden Order, and so they made a weapon specifically designed to take them down. A lot of the most popular lore discussions around this are about how it's similar to two other weapons in the game. One of those being the Black Knife, which was used to kill Godwyn and liberate Ronnie from her flesh. And so it's it shares a lot of similarities with that, as well as the sacred relic sword that you get from the final boss. And I don't know what it is about having to have a weapon that is made out of some sort of like a spine, but apparently it's got god-killing powers.
It's heavy metal is what it is.
It's the most heavy metal.
It's super heavy metal.
Yeah. It's like a book with teeth. It's like, it's powerful.
Yeah, also like if I saw a book with teeth or a dagger that was made out of a spine, don't touch it.
We watched Evil Dead Rise last night, and I was like, I'm all into this. I would go down into a crawl space and grab whatever book and records. Like, this is fucking cool.
Yeah.
If the book had teeth, I would stop.
Maybe I leave it there.
Yeah. At some point, you draw the line.
Even from a scary, even if you put aside the fact that it having teeth means it's supernatural and scary, think about if those teeth belong to somebody. It's disrespectful at best.
At the very least.
They're somebody's teeth. Yeah. They're somebody's teeth. They might want them back.
Yeah. Someone out there is eating pudding very sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or happy they're eating pudding. I don't know.
Blend me up a steak. I gave my teeth to a book.
Like, that's just old Tyler. He's crazy.
So Brad's will says specifically remove his teeth and put them into a copy of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now,
Yeah.
we have to do it, right? Like, it's in the will.
Yeah.
I don't know what the legality is here. Yeah. We get the Finger Slayer blade here, though. There is a portal to get back up to the Hollowhorn grounds. We're definitely not going to Noxtella today. Our discussion ran wonderfully longer than expected.
Oh, I'll take some. I probably did that.
No,
apologies.
It's great. Getting through the Nox lore has been like a thorn in my side for the past couple weeks, just because I remember as a child going to Catholic school, and at one point, the priest told me, he's like, the funny thing is about learning about God is the more you learn, the farther away you feel. And I was like, this sounds stupid. But I get it now. In regards to the Nox. It took the Nox to finally hammer home that religious concept to me.
It's I find it charmingly endemic to Elden Ring lore stuff. Like that specific kind of feeling, and it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where like I think if you kind of tilt your head, you can view it as a strength because it supports that kind of nitty gritty, but it also supports unfocusing your eyes.
Yeah.
And thinking about what like the Nox are about, right? Like the Nox, these things happen to the Nox, but what are the cool things about the Nox? Like what happened to them? Well, they're wrestling from under this yoke. They were very early on in terms of seeing that the greater will was maybe not all it's cracked up to be. Like we know the greater will is not altruistic. They knew it forever ago.
They're like, so wait a second, that's his blood? You're pretending it's his blood and you think that's good?
Just
asking questions here.
The idea that like that they did this forever ago. They were punished. Like we get to see the wrath of the greater will.
Yeah.
This and like reading about it when I first read like, oh, they love the night sky. Mama, they don't get it. They get this crappy fall. It almost feels petty.
Yeah.
If you think about it, almost like an Old Testament insecure God kind of way.
Yeah.
Like to me, those kind of questions, like what are the feelings and such that are being evoked are as interesting as what the sequence of events are, and that's a cool thing you do with the Nox, and you can do it with a lot of Elden Ring. I think.
Yeah. I like that, they've been down there for so long and they clearly have had paths opened to where they can get back up, and they're still down there working and planning. They're still out to get their Age of the Stars and their revenge. I just wish they knew that I'm the Night King, the Lord of Night. I'm here to deliver them. I'm returning their Dark
the Lord
Moon.
of Night's boyfriend.
Yeah.
At absolute worst. Like, come on, stop fighting me. I'm on your side.
Yeah.
With this.
I have the doll. I went to the gift shop. Clearly, I'm a fan of this band. Let me hang out with you.
This is not a replica.
Yeah.
This is the real thing.
You pull the
Are
string.
you like Ronnie? Name 3 of her songs.
Yeah, well, now I'm going to think about what Ronnie's album would be called. That'll be my next task.
Oh my God, it'd be some Evanescence-esque bullshit.
I love it.
It'd be like intolerable in terms of musicians in the land between.
We should put a poll in the Discord.
Yeah.
An open question.
Ronnie's favorite band. Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're
Michael
lucky,
Romance.
it's something like Tori. I mean, you might get like Kate Bush. And it'd be all right because she's a real weird. And I'm like, okay, I like that. But I think the chances for Evanescence are fairly high.
Fairly high.
Yep, Flyleaf maybe.
Yeah. And Blythe is that one
Yeah.
fan that's way too overzealous and excited to be there. And she has to be nice because he's a fan.
Yeah. He started listening to the band because she liked it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and
Followed her.
he doesn't have the same understanding. Yeah.
EG stands at the back because he realizes he's too big.
And he doesn't want to block people's view in the show.
And Seluvis is still fucking a puppet.
Yeah, so
He brought his
he's at
blow
the
up doll
bar.
to the show again.
He's buying the blow up doll drinks at the bar, trying to ignore the music. Yeah, it is a sad concert.
It is a sad, sad concert. Thanks again, Gary, so much for joining us to discuss Nokron with us today. It's been
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I hope it was. I hope it was fun. I hope it wasn't too disruptive to normal flow or anything.
No.
And thank you very much for having me.
It was great. I love the lore episodes, especially when we have a guest on, because it's almost sometimes like I'm hearing a live podcast because I end up learning more than I contribute sometimes, and I feel like that's awesome.
It's a fun. It's also fun for me the same way to like go on a podcast because like I don't. One of the things, you know, we don't proclaim to be experts and we try to stay away from declarative statements on our show just because like I feel like part of the joy is a lot of the stuff is open to interpretation. So I love hearing what other people bring to things to this. It's like one of my favorite things you can do.
Yeah, it's great.
So-
It's good stuff. And if our listeners wanted to check out some of your content, how can they find you?
Best way to find all of my stuff is to go to duckfeed.tv. That links to everything. Our Bonfireside Chat episodes, we have everything up through Dark Souls 3 and on our public feed. So everyone can listen to that. We did Sekiro and Elden Ring and a bunch of other episodes I think are all pretty fun behind our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/duckfeedtv. One of the things that Talking Today reminded me of, we did a whole series on the cut content of all of the games leading up to this. We haven't done the Elden Ring one yet because we're still in our primary coverage, but I'm really looking forward to that. So we've done like primers on a lot of that stuff. Have a lot of fun guests, including yourself, Brad,
Thank you.
on that show.
Absolute joy. Yeah. Long-time listener, long-time friend.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Always nice to chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great getting together. And what was I going to say? I had something really clever and witty. Tyler, what was it going to be?
It was gonna be something about Tokyo Beat Podcast Network.
No, what I wanted to mention, we are part of the Tokyo Beat Podcast Network. Make sure to check out all the other amazing shows there. I just wanted to do a specific call out to Best Quality Vacuum. If you are a fan of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and El Camino, and I guess chip commercials featuring Tuco Salamanca, perhaps. Yeah, Best Quality Vacuum is a show that Gary and Cole do on Duck Feed, and you guys are doing a rewatch, and I'm not even rewatching the show because it's so burned into my brain, but it's so great to hear your perspectives on it, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that show so far.
Oh, thanks. It's been a blast to revisit. That show's great. It's a thing early on that brought me and Cole together. Other than video game stuff, like early stuff in Duck Feed.
Meth?
We used to have yeah, cookie. Well, we ran afoul of a certain psychopathic drug dealer. And we actually started Watch Out for Fireballs in a tiny house on the border. We used to have a section on our show at the end where we would just play the Breaking Bad music and then just talk about that episode. You know, we'd play the spoiler and be like, if you don't care, this isn't what we're talking about. But if you don't care, here we go. We're gonna go back and forth and talk about Breaking Bad. And we loved it. We always talked about this thing that, you know, we absolutely adored and watched when it came out. And then finally Better Call Saul ending kind of gave us the excuse to do it. Like, this is a complete story. Let's finally go through and do it. Like, we try not to do things when they're topical.
Yeah.
a little bit, because and we're doing Elden Ring now, and that's topical, and we'll do the we'll do the DLC when it comes out and everything too. But we try not to, because it's fun to have that full perspective. Yeah. Like, we know everything that happened that brought the characters to the point of Breaking Bad. So that added context makes it a great time to reinvestigate it, I think.
Yeah.
So
if you know where the story ends, it gives you perspective on, chapter 2.
It stands up so well.
Yeah.
It's such a good show. I know that, do you need a white guy to tell you Breaking Bad is good? Because I got you covered.
We're backing you up, too.
Do you need 3 white men on a podcast to tell you Breaking Bad is good? It's the only thing, you can only get it here. But I actually don't know if you're a white guy, Tyler. Sorry.
Yes, I am.
But
and it's my favorite show.
It's a phenomenal show. Like, we're wrong about a lot of stuff, but the white guys are right about this one. I don't know if I feel comfortable with that, but it's kind of true.
I don't feel comfortable with it, but I agree.
It's, just throwing that little moral bomb in the middle of this.
We're going to 1 point now for white guys in all of history, is that Breaking Bad is good.
There's so many other points against us.
That's the only one.
Breaking Bad is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
So check out that show. And here at the Dogcast, we exist because of people like you. So if you're listening to us this far, thank you so much. If you have a chance to write a review or whatever, like and subscribe, I don't know, all of those, do everything you can for free to support us if you can. And if you wanted access to episodes way in advance, exclusive episodes like our Street Fighter lore or God of War Ragnarok episode, if you want access to any of those discussions, check us out on patreon.com/hairofthedogcast. Big thanks to executive producers Rykard Christinick, Malakip the Black Blade, Blackguard Big Brian, Jordan Hoslow, Sorceress of Blood, and Festering Fingerprint Phil. Thanks for your support, and big thanks to new Patreon members Trey and Bryant Ross. Welcome to the family. And that's all we got for you today. If you're playing Mumbly Peggy, be careful.
Start with the pencil, the eraser side. Get a nice Ticonderoga. Start with the eraser side. Work up to it.
Put those things you can't eat, those extra erasers, on top of the erasers.
Yeah, you want some extra cushion.
Yeah. And thanks again for tuning in, and thanks again, Gary. We will be back to discuss on the next Dogcast. We're going to Summer Games Done Quick, me and Tyler. And
hell yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be watching somebody beat Breath of the Wild blindfolded.
I still don't understand how that's possible.
I love that I told you that was coming. And like a week later, because you're playing it. And then
I'm playing Breath of the Wild right now.
A week later, Tyler goes, so he's going to beat it blindfolded?
That's impossible.
And
that's incredible.
Yeah, there'll be an Elden Ring any % glitchless as well. Popcorn Dogs, we have an upcoming interview with Jamie Flanagan, the writer for Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, and Midnight Club, as well as their upcoming show, The Fall of the House of Usher. So if you have any questions or things you wanted us to share with Jamie, we'd be happy to do that. And next time on Elden Dogs, we will go into either Noxtella or the Deep Root Depths in the Nameless Eternal City. Nothing makes sense in our ordering, so you'll see it come up and hopefully listen, because that's what we're going to do. And yeah, so make sure to walk your silver tears, and we'll see you next time.